Welcome to Whispered Tales by Joe, where history meets tranquility. In this channel, we invite you to unwind and journey through time with our soothing tales, blending the rich stories of the past with calming narration, designed to help you relax and drift off to sleep. Your guide through these stories is John, a retired historian with a lifetime of knowledge and a deep love for the lessons of history. With a gentle voice and a reflective spirit, John brings to life the rise and fall of great civilizations, the legends that shaped our world, and the wisdom they left behind. Tonight's tale is no different. Join us as we explore the story of the Roman Empire, from its grandeur and achievements to its eventual decline. Through John's thoughtful narration, we'll reflect on the lasting legacy of Rome, a civilization whose influence continues to shape the world today. Settle in, take a deep breath, and let the story of Rome guide you into a peaceful, restful state. John, now retired but forever immersed in the stories of the past, often contemplates the great empires that have shaped human history. He sees the world as a tapestry woven from the threads of civilizations that rose, flourished, and fell, each leaving behind its influence on the modern world. From the early days of Mesopotamia and Egypt, stretching over 3,000 years before the Common Era, humans began organizing into powerful states, building monumental structures, and laying the foundations for governance and culture. The Greeks, with their philosophers and scientists, ushered in intellectual revolutions during the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, while the Persians forged one of the largest empires the world had ever seen, connecting east and west through vast trade routes. By the time Rome emerged as a republic in the 6th century BCE, empires had already transformed much of the known world. Yet Rome would surpass them all, lasting from 27 BCE under Augustus until its fall in 476 CE. It became more than just a military force. It was a unifier of cultures, a beacon of innovation that laid the foundations for much of what defines the Western world today. Rome, however, was not the last great empire to influence history. In the centuries that followed its decline, the world saw the rise of the Byzantine Empire, which preserved Roman traditions in the East. The Islamic caliphates expanded across North Africa and into Spain, fostering advances in science, medicine, and philosophy from the 7th to the 15th centuries. Europe witnessed the birth of the Holy Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the British Empire, each carving out its place in shaping global politics, economics, and culture. As John reflects, he sees that while many empires have risen and fallen, some fading into obscurity, Rome's legacy endures. Its influence on law, architecture, and governance continues to shape the institutions we live under today. The principles of Roman law echo in modern legal systems, while Latin has evolved into the languages spoken by millions. The infrastructure that Rome built, from roads to aqueducts, still serves as inspiration for modern engineering. Empires rise and fall, but their legacies are carved in the stones of time. Even now, as John thinks of these empires, he knows that Rome occupies a unique place in the grand narrative of history. Its lasting influence remains embedded in the very foundations of Western civilization. At the height of its power, the Roman Empire was the epitome of human achievement. John imagines Rome in its prime, its streets bustling with life, merchants trading goods from distant lands, and the hum of daily activity filling the air. The Colosseum, an architectural marvel, stood as a testament to Rome's engineering prowess and its dominance over both man and nature. Aqueducts stretched across the landscape, carrying water from faraway mountains into the heart of the empire, sustaining its population of over 1 million people. Roads, expertly constructed and meticulously maintained, connected the farthest reaches of the empire, allowing the legions to move swiftly and efficiently, ensuring the safety and stability of Roman rule. Rome's legions were the finest the world had ever seen, their discipline and skill unmatched. They guarded the frontiers, patrolling the edges of the empire from Britannia to the deserts of North Africa. But it wasn't just military might that made Rome great. It was the exchange of ideas, culture, and art. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, allowed for an era of unprecedented growth, both culturally and economically. John reflects on how, beyond its physical empire, Rome's true power lay in the institutions it built. Institutions that shaped the lives of millions, not just within the empire, but in the centuries that followed. Rome's legal system was one of its most enduring legacies. The development of Roman law, from the early 12 tables to the sophisticated legal frameworks under later emperors, became the foundation upon which modern legal systems are built. Roman law was innovative in its approach to citizenship, contracts, and property rights. It provided a sense of order and justice that held the vast and diverse empire together. The concept of jus civile, the civil law that applied to Roman citizens, and jus gentium, the law governing relations with foreigners, allowed Rome to manage its vast and multicultural territories efficiently. These principles have survived through the ages, forming the backbone of modern legal codes in Europe and much of the world today. Beyond law, Rome's cultural influence spread far and wide, shaping not only the Mediterranean but also the future of Western civilization. Latin, the language of Rome, became the lingua franca of the empire, spreading across Europe and evolving into the Romance languages spoken by millions today. Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian, Roman literature, philosophy, and education systems deeply influenced generations of scholars, philosophers, and writers in the centuries that followed. John considers how the empire's centralized bureaucracy and efficient governance allowed it to maintain control over such a vast territory. The Roman Senate and the emperor's administration developed policies that reached into every corner of the empire, ensuring that even distant provinces operated under a shared sense of Roman identity and law. This influence extended beyond Rome's fall, with the Byzantine Empire continuing many Roman traditions for nearly 1,000 years after the Western Empire collapsed. Rome wasn't just an empire of military might. It was an empire of ideas that continue to shape the world today. At its height, the Roman Empire spanned nearly 2 million square miles, encompassing 3 continents: Europe, Asia, and Africa. From the windswept coasts of Britannia to the bustling markets of Alexandria, Rome's territorial reach was unparalleled. John reflects on the sheer scope of the empire, which brought diverse cultures, peoples, and landscapes under the Roman banner. The Roman roads, known for their durability and engineering brilliance, connected distant provinces to the heart of the empire, ensuring that news, trade, and military forces could move swiftly across vast distances. These roads weren't just pathways for the legions. They were conduits for ideas, culture, and commerce, creating a unified world under Roman rule. But Rome's power wasn't just in its ability to conquer. It was in its ability to integrate. Through a careful balance of local autonomy and Roman governance, the empire allowed different regions to retain aspects of their culture while embracing Roman laws and infrastructure. The Mediterranean Sea, once a contested frontier between rival civilizations, became Mare Nostrum, our sea, a Roman lake that facilitated trade, diplomacy, and military dominance. Rome's unparalleled reach made it not just an empire of territories, but an empire of peoples. John reflects on how, through this vast expansion, Rome established a legacy of unity and civilization that still resonates today. At its height, the Roman Empire spanned nearly 2 million square miles, bringing together a multitude of cultures and peoples under one rule. Rome's unparalleled reach made it not just an empire of conquest, but an empire of integration, leaving an indelible mark on the world. As one, we stand. As many, we build. In unity, we find our strength. As John reflects on this vast empire, his mind turns to the remarkable achievements that made it possible. The roads that stretched across continents, the aqueducts that brought life to bustling cities, and the architectural marvels that stood as symbols of Rome's power. All were testaments to the ingenuity and innovation of the Roman people. To truly understand the empire's greatness, we must first explore these achievements. Rome's achievements in engineering and architecture stand as some of the most enduring legacies of the empire. As John delves into the grandeur of these innovations, he reflects on the vision and skill that went into creating structures that still inspire awe today. The Roman aqueducts, perhaps one of the most remarkable feats of engineering, stretched across the empire, carrying water from distant sources into cities and towns. These aqueducts, elevated on towering arches, provided a reliable supply of fresh water, supporting the daily lives of millions of Roman citizens. The sheer scale and precision of their construction demonstrated Rome's ability to harness natural resources in ways that had never been done before. John imagines the engineers of ancient Rome, standing on the hillsides, surveying the land and envisioning the pathways for their aqueducts. With the tools of their time, they managed to create structures that could deliver water across vast distances, a feat that laid the foundation for modern urban planning. The aqueducts, though built centuries ago, still stand as silent witnesses to Rome's ingenuity. But it wasn't only practical needs that Rome sought to address. The empire also dedicated itself to the creation of monumental architecture that would symbolize its power and prestige. The Colosseum, with its grand arches and intricate design, served as a public space for entertainment, while the Pantheon, with its massive dome, remains one of the most impressive examples of Roman architectural innovation. John pauses, marveling at how these structures have withstood the test of time. The Colosseum, despite centuries of wear and damage, still stands as a symbol of Rome's might, while the Pantheon's dome continues to inspire architects to this day. These were not merely buildings, they were expressions of the Roman spirit, bold, enduring, and forward-thinking. Poem. Stone upon stone, the builders dreamed, and with each touch, they carved eternity. As John reflects on the brilliance of Roman engineering, he transitions to the empire's military prowess, which was as much a part of its strength as its architectural achievements. The roads that connected the empire weren't just pathways for trade. They were lifelines for the Roman legions, and it is to this military might that we now turn. John reflects on the military genius of the Roman Empire, a force that was unmatched in the ancient world. At the heart of this dominance was the Roman legion, an organized and disciplined unit capable of both overwhelming force and tactical finesse. The legions were more than soldiers. They were engineers, builders, and diplomats, embodying the empire's strength in every aspect. The Roman army was known for its innovative strategies and formations. The famous testudo, or tortoise formation, where soldiers would lock their shields to form an impenetrable wall, was just one example of the military's adaptability on the battlefield. John imagines the sight of these soldiers, advancing steadily under the protection of their shields, their discipline and training allowing them to conquer foes that often outnumbered them. But it wasn't just battlefield tactics that made the Roman army so formidable. Their ability to build and maintain infrastructure, such as roads and forts, allowed them to move quickly across vast distances, ensuring that the empire remained unified and secure. These roads, originally constructed by Roman engineers, served as the arteries through which legions could be deployed rapidly to any corner of the empire, maintaining control over territories as distant as Britannia and North Africa. John reflects on the rigorous training that each soldier underwent, which created a bond of trust and cohesion that made the Roman army nearly invincible for centuries. Each legionnaire was not only a warrior, but also a symbol of Roman order and civilization, bringing with them the stability needed for the empire to thrive. The empire's military might was also built on its leadership. Roman generals were as much strategists as they were warriors, carefully planning campaigns that would extend the empire's reach while minimizing losses. Figures like Julius Caesar and Scipio Africanus exemplified this leadership, their victories securing Rome's dominance across the Mediterranean. The legacy of Rome's military strategy can still be felt today, with its concepts of leadership, logistics, and battlefield organization influencing modern armies. John contemplates how the Roman legions, once the most powerful force in the world, became an enduring symbol of discipline and tactical brilliance. Lead not with the sword, but with the mind, for in strategy lies the strength of empires. John understands that Rome's military was the foundation of its empire, allowing it to expand and maintain control over such a vast area. But even the strongest military power is only as effective as the wealth and resources it protects. As we move forward, we turn to how Rome's economic and trade networks fuel the empire's success. Rome's military might ensured its dominance, but it was its intellectual and cultural contributions that cemented its place in history. As John reflects on the cultural achievements of Rome, he envisions a society where art, literature, philosophy, and law flourished alongside the empire's military expansion. The works of thinkers like Cicero and Seneca, with their reflections on governance, ethics, and the human condition, helped shape the intellectual framework of Roman society. Cicero, in particular, provided a bridge between Greek philosophy and Roman governance, influencing future generations of political thought with his writings on justice and the rule of law. Seneca's Stoic philosophy, which emphasized virtue, self-control, and inner peace, became a guiding principle for many Romans, shaping the moral fabric of the empire. In the realm of literature, Virgil's Aeneid stands as a crowning achievement of Roman poetic tradition. The epic not only celebrated the founding of Rome, but also reinforced the empire's destiny as a civilizing force in the world. John considers how these works laid the foundation for Western thought, influencing literature, philosophy, and law long after the empire's fall. Rome's contributions to law were equally profound. The development of Roman law provided a structured legal system that governed every aspect of Roman life. The principles of fairness, justice, and equality before the law were codified in systems that would later influence legal frameworks across Europe and beyond. John pauses, admiring how Rome's intellectual achievements shaped the future of Europe and the Western world. From the arts to governance, Roman culture became a beacon of wisdom that would endure for centuries. In thought, we rise. In wisdom, we stand. Minds shape empires as much as hands. With a strong cultural foundation, Rome's influence extended beyond military conquest. The empire's intellectual achievements intertwined with its economic might, and now John turns his gaze to the vast networks of trade and wealth that powered Rome's success. Rome's intellectual and cultural achievements were supported by an equally impressive economic engine. The vast trade networks that spanned the empire allowed Rome to flourish, connecting distant provinces with a steady flow of goods, wealth, and ideas. John reflects on how the Mediterranean, once a frontier for rival powers, became Mare Nostrum, our sea, under Roman control, facilitating trade across Europe, Africa, and Asia. Roman merchants traded goods like grain, olive oil, wine, and textiles, while importing luxuries from as far as China and India through the Silk Road. The Roman currency, standardized and widely accepted, ensured economic stability and made commerce easier across such vast distances. John considers how this economic integration not only brought wealth, but also united the provinces culturally, as the exchange of goods was accompanied by an exchange of ideas, art, and customs. The unified economy created by the Romans connected the empire in ways that had never been seen before, allowing it to thrive for centuries. John reflects on the strength of Rome's economic foundations, admiring how the empire's prosperity was tied to its ability to connect and integrate the farthest corners of its realm. But as with all great empires, the very systems that brought it wealth would also expose vulnerabilities, leading to eventual decline. No empire, no matter how powerful, is immune to internal decay. As John reflects on the history of Rome, he sees the beginning of the empire's decline not in the hands of invading armies, but within the very heart of its political system. As Rome expanded and flourished, its political foundations began to crumble under the weight of corruption and mismanagement. John introduces the first signs of internal decay, focusing on the Senate and the emperors who struggled to maintain control over the vast territories. what had once been a symbol of Roman unity and governance. The Senate had now become a breeding ground for greed, factionalism, and power struggles. The Roman Senate, once the heart of the Republic, had lost much of its authority as emperors consolidated power. Over time, this consolidation created a fragile political system where power became concentrated in the hands of a few, while the voices of the people were increasingly ignored. Emperors like Nero and Commodus ruled with excess and incompetence, draining the empire's resources and trust. Corruption seeped into every level of Roman governance, from local officials to the highest levels of the imperial court. John reflects on the fragility of leadership and how the very institutions that had once held Rome together were now tearing it apart. Political instability bred distrust and unrest. Economic troubles, spurred by mismanagement and excessive spending on luxuries and military campaigns, further strained the empire. The wealth that once poured into Rome was now being wasted, and the people, once loyal to the empire, began to question its legitimacy. In the provinces, local leaders, sensing the weakening of central authority, began to assert their own power, further fracturing the unity of the empire. As John contemplates these events, he notes that the seeds of decline had been planted long before the empire showed outward signs of collapse. It was the gradual erosion of trust, stability, and leadership that paved the way for Rome's eventual fall. The more power, the more dangerous the abuse of it. Cicero. John recognizes the cyclical nature of empires, understanding that even the greatest of them can fall prey to the same internal forces: greed, corruption, and political instability. Yet, he remains philosophical, knowing that these are challenges faced by all civilizations, and it is from these lessons that history finds its continuity. The internal struggles of Rome, the corruption, the loss of trust, and the growing instability were the first signs of an empire losing its way. But even in the face of such challenges, there were moments of renewal. John reflects that, while many forces pushed Rome toward decline, there was a new force rising from within that offered hope and unity to a fractured empire. In the midst of the chaos, a new chapter was being written, one that would change the course of Rome's history and leave an indelible mark on the world. This change came in the form of a leader, Constantine, and a faith that would reshape the empire and bring it together in ways unimaginable just decades earlier. In the early 4th century, as Rome wrestled with its internal decay, Constantine the Great rose to power, bringing with him a vision that would alter the trajectory of the Roman Empire. John reflects on the remarkable impact that Constantine had, not just as a military leader, but as a unifier of faith. Constantine's embrace of Christianity in 312 CE, marked by his victory at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, was a turning point that gave the empire a renewed sense of purpose. The Christian faith, once persecuted under earlier emperors, found a protector in Constantine. His conversion to Christianity symbolized a profound shift in the empire's identity, from a polytheistic society to one increasingly centered around the Christian faith. John contemplates how Constantine's reign brought about a sense of unity and hope at a time when Rome desperately needed it. Under Constantine, Christianity grew from a persecuted sect to the state religion, offering a spiritual foundation for the empire. With the Edict of Milan in 313 CE, Constantine granted religious tolerance, allowing Christianity to flourish openly. John reflects on the impact this had on the people of Rome, many of whom sought solace in their faith amidst the political and social turmoil of the time. For a crumbling empire, Christianity offered a new sense of belonging, a community that transcended the divisions and corruption that had plagued Rome for so long. Constantine's legacy extended far beyond his military conquests. His establishment of Constantinople as the new capital in the East laid the groundwork for what would become the Byzantine Empire, which would carry the Roman legacy for nearly 1,000 more years. John sees in Constantine a leader who, in the face of decline, found a way to breathe new life into Rome by embracing change and faith. On this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. As John contemplates the transformative power of Constantine's reign, he cannot ignore the economic realities that continued to challenge the empire. Even with the spiritual and cultural revival brought by Christianity, Rome's vast territories and overextended resources would eventually weigh heavily on its stability. While Constantine's reforms provided Rome with a newfound sense of unity, the underlying economic troubles persisted. John reflects on how Rome's vast expansion, once a source of strength, became a burden. The cost of maintaining such a large empire, with its sprawling territories and military commitments, placed enormous strain on the imperial coffers. Rome's overextension became increasingly evident as resources were stretched thin. The roads that once connected distant provinces required constant maintenance, while the legions, stationed across the empire's vast borders, demanded supplies and salaries. Taxation, designed to fund the empire's needs, became oppressive, and the burden fell heavily on the provinces, leading to further unrest. John acknowledges that this was a challenge faced by many great civilizations, growing beyond their capacity to sustain themselves. For Rome, this overextension, combined with political instability and economic mismanagement, laid the groundwork for further decline. The empire, once a symbol of unity and prosperity, was now struggling to manage its own weight. Yet, even in the face of such challenges, Rome's legacy would endure. John contemplates how the lessons of overextension and economic strain serve as a reminder that all empires must balance ambition with sustainability. As Rome's political and economic systems faltered, the Germanic tribes and other external groups saw an opportunity. The borders of the empire, once so fiercely guarded, began to feel the pressure of these new adversaries. It is here, in the clash between Rome and the barbarian tribes, that the empire would face some of its greatest trials. Rome had always been a military powerhouse, with its legions securing the borders and ensuring peace within the empire. But by the 3rd and 4th centuries, these borders were increasingly under threat from outside forces. John reflects on how the empire's once unassailable frontier now faced a series of barbarian incursions that would test its strength like never before. The early encounters between Rome and the barbarian tribes began as small skirmishes along the empire's northern borders. The Germanic tribes, in particular, sought to push into Roman territory, drawn by the promise of fertile lands and resources. John paints a vivid scene of Roman soldiers, clad in armor, standing resolute along the frontier, their shields raised in defense of the empire. The legions, battle-hardened and disciplined, met these early threats with the same ferocity that had built the Roman Empire. The soldiers fought valiantly, determined to protect the empire from the invading forces. For centuries, they had stood as the empire's shield, keeping the threats from the north at bay. John reflects on the bravery of these soldiers, who faced not just one enemy, but a series of invasions that would come to define the later years of the Roman Empire. The Germanic tribes, including the Visigoths, Vandals, and Ostrogoths, were not unified, but their constant pressure weakened the Roman defenses over time. As the years passed, these early incursions would evolve into full-scale invasions. The legions, stretched thin across the empire, struggled to hold the frontiers. John imagines the tension of those years as Roman soldiers fought to maintain the borders against increasingly bold attacks. To stand as a wall, unbroken by the storm, that is the way of Rome's soldiers. John contemplates the early resistance of the Roman soldiers, but he knows that these skirmishes were only the beginning. The empire would soon face much greater challenges as the barbarians pressed deeper into Roman territory, eventually leading to the fall of the city of Rome itself. The turning point came in 395 CE, after the death of Emperor Theodosius I, who was the last emperor to rule both the Eastern and Western Roman empires. After his death, the empire was split between his two sons, Honorius in the west and Arcadius in the east. This division marked the formal beginning of the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire, while the East, with its capital in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, remained stronger and more resilient. The West, with its capital in Ravenna, after being moved from Rome, faced growing pressures from both internal decay and the rising threat of barbarian invasions. During this period of division, the Visigoths, led by King Alaric, entered Roman territory, setting the stage for one of the most shocking events in Roman history. The Visigoths, fleeing the advancing Huns, had initially been welcomed by the Romans and granted refuge within the empire's borders. They had hoped for protection and land, but the promises made to them by the Roman authorities were never fully honored. Frustration and anger grew, and what had begun as an alliance soon turned into conflict. In August 410 CE, the unthinkable happened. Alaric and his Visigothic army breached the mighty walls of Rome, the city that had stood as the center of the Roman world for centuries. For 3 days, the Visigoths looted, pillaged, and ravaged the city, leaving behind devastation that reverberated throughout the empire. It was a symbolic blow to the Roman psyche. Rome, the eternal city, had fallen, and with it, the belief in the invincibility of the Roman Empire. John reflects on the chaos of those days. The once mighty Roman Forum, where great orators had spoken, now lay in ruins, filled not with the bustling noise of Roman political life, but with the echoes of destruction. The magnificent monuments, palaces, and temples that had once symbolized Rome's grandeur were desecrated. The sack of Rome shattered the illusion that the empire was impenetrable. However, John is careful to note that, as tragic as the event was, it did not mean the immediate collapse of the Western Roman Empire. Though Rome was no longer the political capital, having been moved to Ravenna by Emperor Honorius for defensive reasons. Its fall still carried immense psychological and symbolic weight. John imagines the shock felt across the Roman world. The city that had once been the heart of the greatest empire in history had been reduced to ruins. Yet, Honorius, the Western Roman emperor, was safely stationed in Ravenna during the sack, and the core political structure of the empire remained intact for the time being. Ravenna's marshy landscape and well-fortified position helped shield the emperor from the immediate threat, minimizing the direct impact of the sack on imperial governance. However, the sack of Rome was more than just a temporary shock. It revealed the weakening state of the Western Empire, which could no longer protect even its most symbolic city. The event sent ripples across the empire and to distant provinces, making clear that Rome's strength was waning. John continues by reflecting on the aftermath of the sack. Though Alaric's forces had devastated the city, they did not remain in Rome. After the sack, Alaric led his Visigothic army south, intending to cross into North Africa, a province rich in resources that he hoped would sustain his people. But fate intervened. Shortly after the sack of Rome, Alaric died, and his dream of leading his people into North Africa perished with him. Following Alaric's death, the Visigothic forces retreated north and eventually settled in Gaul, modern-day France, and Hispania, modern-day Spain, where they would establish the Visigothic kingdom. John imagines the resilience of the Roman people during these dark times. Though Rome was physically devastated, the spirit of its people and the empire lived on. Rome had been sacked before, and it had survived crises many times in the past. The sack of 410 was a tremendous blow, but it was not the final chapter in the story of the Western Roman Empire. Instead, John suggests, it marked the beginning of a long, slow decline. He pauses, reflecting on the significance of the event. The sack of Rome was not just a military defeat, but a symbolic one. It was the collapse of an idea, the idea that Rome was eternal and invincible. Yet, even in the face of such devastation, John contemplates how the Roman people and the empire as a whole fought on. The Western Empire, though increasingly fragile, would continue to exist for several more decades, its spirit enduring in ways both large and small. O Rome, your walls may fall, but your spirit endures. In ashes we rise, in sorrow we remember. As John lingers on the emotional weight of the sack of Rome, he acknowledges that while the city itself may have fallen, the Roman Empire was not yet finished. The sack was a turning point, a signal of the empire's vulnerability, but not its final collapse. The Western Roman Empire would continue to fight for survival, but the challenges ahead would grow ever more daunting as new enemies and further internal decay continued to erode its foundations. Though Rome had been brought low, John concludes that history shows the resilience of great civilizations. The spirit of Rome, its laws, culture, and influence, would continue to shake the world long after its walls had crumbled. The sack of 410 CE marked the beginning of the end for the Western Roman Empire, but its legacy would live on for centuries to come. While the Western Roman Empire faced repeated invasions and internal decline, the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, continued to thrive. Founded by Constantine the Great in 330 CE, the city of Constantinople became the new capital of the Eastern Empire and a symbol of Roman strength and resilience. Constantine had not only established Constantinople, but he had also transformed the empire by embracing Christianity. In 313 CE, the Edict of Milan granted religious tolerance, allowing Christianity to flourish openly across both the Eastern and Western Roman empires. By the time of Rome's fall in 410 CE, Christianity had become deeply ingrained in the empire's identity. While the Western Roman Empire struggled to maintain control, the Eastern Empire grew in wealth, military power, and religious unity under the Christian faith. John reflects on how the Byzantine emperors, particularly Justinian I, carried forward the legacy of Roman governance, law, and culture while adapting to the changing world. The Eastern Roman Empire not only survived the collapse of the West, but expanded its influence and preserved the traditions of Rome. Christianity became the unifying faith of the empire, and Constantinople stood as the religious and political center of the Christian world. Even though Rome had lost its status as the capital of the Western Roman Empire long before its sack in 410 CE, it remained a city of immense symbolic and cultural importance, while Ravenna had become the administrative center of the West, and Constantinople served as the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. Rome's influence persisted, especially in the realm of Christianity and its legacy. The division of the Roman Empire did not signal the end of Christianity or Roman culture. Instead, the Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, continued to thrive for nearly 1,000 years. The Byzantines preserved and transformed Roman legal traditions, governance, and culture, while also shaping the future of Europe and the Middle East. Though the Western Empire fell, the legacy of Rome lived on through the Byzantine Empire, which became the torchbearer of Roman civilization for centuries to come. Through fire and stone, we endure. Though empires fall, we rise anew. By 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire was but a shadow of its former self. The empire had lost much of its territory, and its power was fractured by internal strife and barbarian invasions. It was in this weakened state that Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of the West, came to power. A mere boy of 16, Romulus was a figurehead with little real authority, and the true power behind the throne was the Germanic general Odoacer. John reflects on this moment in history. In 476 CE, Odoacer, tired of maintaining the pretense that the Western Roman Empire held any significant authority, deposed Romulus without resistance. Odoacer did not seek to become emperor himself. Instead, he sent the imperial insignia to Constantinople, signaling that the Western Roman Empire would no longer have its own emperor. This quiet deposition marked the symbolic end of the Western Roman Empire, but not the end of Rome's legacy. John emphasizes that the Eastern Roman Empire continued to thrive. While the West had fallen to barbarian invasions, the East, with its strong defenses and vibrant economy, remained a powerful force. The fall of Romulus Augustulus did not mean the end of Roman civilization. The Byzantine Empire, with its capital in Constantinople, carried forward Roman law, culture, and religion for nearly 1,000 more years. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE was not a cataclysmic event, but the final stage in a long process of decline. The Western Empire had been fragmented by years of political instability, invasions, and economic troubles. However, the spirit of Rome lived on, both in the Eastern Roman Empire and in the kingdoms that emerged from its ashes. As one empire falls, another rises. In the ashes of the past, the seeds of the future take root. With the deposition of Romulus Augustulus, the Roman Empire in the West officially came to an end. But, as John reflects, the fall of the Western Roman Empire did not plunge Europe into chaos, as some might think. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new era, the Middle Ages. Far from a dark age, this period was one of transformation, as new kingdoms rose from the ashes of Rome and began to shape the future of Europe. John sees the transition to the Middle Ages not as a moment of decline, but as a time of renewal. The fall of centralized Roman power allowed for the emergence of new political entities, kingdoms like the Franks, Visigoths, and Ostrogoths, who established their own rule over former Roman territories. These new rulers, though they had once been Rome's adversaries, adopted much of the Roman way of life, preserving Roman law, governance, and culture. John reflects on how, even as the Western Roman Empire fell, its ideals continued to influence the emerging medieval world. Roman law, with its emphasis on justice and fairness, became the foundation for the legal systems of many medieval kingdoms. Roman infrastructure, roads, aqueducts, and fortifications continued to serve as vital parts of medieval life. Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, evolved into the Romance languages and remained the language of the church and intellectual discourse for centuries. The Roman Catholic Church, which had grown under the protection of the empire, emerged as a powerful force in the Middle Ages, carrying on the traditions of Rome. The Church not only provided spiritual guidance, but also preserved knowledge and learning through monastic communities, ensuring that Roman literature, philosophy, and law would not be lost to time. Rome's institutions, from its legal systems to its monumental architecture, left an indelible mark on Western civilization. John reflects on how Roman law, with its principles of justice, equity, and rights, became the foundation of many modern legal systems. The concept of a republic, with elected officials and civic responsibility, echoed through history, influencing the formation of modern democracies centuries later. Roman architecture, with its arches, aqueducts, and grand public buildings, set a standard for urban design that persists to this day. Cities across Europe still bear the influence of Roman engineering, with roads, bridges, and public spaces that reflect Roman innovation. The idea of citizenship, rooted in rights and responsibilities, was a Roman legacy that continues to shape modern governance. John sees how Roman culture, through its literature, philosophy, and art, became woven into the fabric of Western thought. Writers like Cicero and Virgil shaped the intellectual landscape, while the Stoic philosophy of Seneca provided guidance through life's challenges. These cultural and intellectual contributions continue to inspire and influence thinkers and artists today. Rome's legacy was not confined to its physical structures or governance. It was the enduring power of ideas that has shaped Western civilization for millennia. John's reflections return to Constantine the Great, the emperor who united Rome under Christianity and laid the foundations for the Byzantine Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital in Constantinople, preserved and carried forward Roman traditions long after the fall of the West. The Byzantine Empire, often seen as the continuation of Rome, upheld its legal, cultural, and architectural heritage for nearly 1,000 more years. Constantine's embrace of Christianity and his founding of Constantinople ensured that Rome's spirit would endure through the Byzantine Empire. The blending of Roman governance, Christian faith, and Eastern influences allowed the empire to thrive and play a central role in the medieval world. John notes that Constantine's vision of unity through faith and tradition bridged the ancient and medieval worlds, ensuring that the legacy of Rome would continue to influence the course of history. From ashes we rise, from history we grow. In the strength of what was, we build what is to come. As John reaches the end of Rome's story, he offers a calming reflection on the rise and fall of great civilizations. History, he muses, is a cycle, a series of moments where empires rise to greatness, only to eventually fade into memory. But their legacies, their lessons, remain. Rome's story is one of transformation. From its early republic to its grand empire, and even in its decline, Rome left a mark on the world that continues to guide and inspire. John encourages the listener to see Rome's story as a reminder of the impermanence of power and the endurance of ideas. The rise and fall of civilizations teach us that while nothing is eternal, the impact of great ideas resonates through time. As the story draws to a close, John's voice softens. The glory of Rome may have passed, but its spirit lives on in the institutions, philosophies, and cultures that continue to shape the world today. Empires rise and empires fall, yet in their wake we hear the call of law and stone, of word and art. Their legacies dwell in every heart. Though time may turn their walls to dust, their spirit lingers, strong and just. In every city, every law, the echoes of their glory draw. So as we rest, we learn, we see. The past is present, eternally. With these reflective words, John leaves the listener with a sense of peace. The rise and fall of Rome is a reminder that history flows like a river, constant, ever-changing, but always carrying the wisdom of the past. As we bring this journey through time to a close, we thank you for joining us on Whispered Tales by Joe. Here, where history meets tranquility, we hope you found not only stories of the past, but also a sense of peace to carry you into the night. The rise and fall of great civilizations remind us of the beauty in both change and continuity. We invite you to return whenever you seek both knowledge and calm, to journey through the ages with us once again. My name is Joe. Until next time, and may the stories we shared echo gently in your dreams. Sleep well, and good night from Whispered Tales by Joe.